Well, hi and welcome to our Easter Saturday midday stand. How are you doing? How is life treating you? I wonder if, like me, you find waiting difficult. I wonder if you are impatient. But there's waiting and there's waiting, isn't there? I was thinking about, waiting for in a doctor's surgery or in the dentist's. There's that kind of waiting. But there's also the kind of waiting for a birthday present or Christmas to come round. There's the waiting for good news to break through. There's the waiting of anticipation, of joy, like waiting for a baby to be born. But there's also the waiting that's the uncertain waiting, when we're not sure what the outcome will be. Maybe it's waiting for the result of a job interview, or the waiting for a diagnosis for our health. There's the waiting that's the uncertain. Waiting is difficult. And that first Easter weekend, it must have been incredibly difficult for those early disciples to wait. To wait with anything other than a dread, a fear. They'd just seen the Messiah. They'd just seen their friend, their teacher, hung on a cross, give up his life, and then put in a tomb. I wonder if they were even waiting at all. Maybe they'd given up waiting. Maybe they had thought, it is finished. We've got to accept the reality. The stone is laid in front of the tomb. It is finished. The suggestion is that some of the disciples had given up waiting, because in fact it was the women who went to the tomb on that early Easter Sunday morning. But waiting is tough. And I wonder whether some of us have given up waiting. Waiting perhaps for promises to be fulfilled. Waiting for those stubborn prayers to be answered. And this Easter weekend, particularly this Easter Saturday, as Rachel reminded us this morning, is often that wrestle. That in the waiting there is that wrestle of faith. Which way will it tip? I was reminded of the little phrase that we have in the English language. What's going to happen at the 11th hour? It was an 11th hour moment, almost that sense of it was almost too late, but at the very last minute it broke through. And I was just chuckling to myself that today is the 11th of April. And I wonder whether for some of us it is that 11th hour moment, that we finally see a breakthrough for things we've been praying for so long, that we finally see things tip into the goodness of God. Nationally and internationally, we are wrestling for a breakthrough from this pandemic virus. And I wonder how many of us are wondering how much longer we will need to wait for a breakthrough to come. But the Bible really encourages us not to wait with resignation, not to wait passively and just think, oh well, whatever will be, let's just sit back and watch the outcome. But no, the Bible encourages you and I to wait with eager expectation. Psalm 27 and verse 14 says, wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Yes, and wait for the Lord. I wonder whether you and I could make that good decision today to wait with expectation, to stand firm. You see, when we've done all, sometimes there's nothing more we can do. We're in that moment where it is that tipping point moment, and there's nothing more we can do other than to stand firm in faith and not relent and not give up the ground of our promises. In Ephesians chapter 6, we're reminded that wrestle, even as Rachel referred to this morning, that wrestle that goes on between life and death, between breakthrough and defeat, that wrestle that happens isn't actually a wrestle to do with human beings and people, but it's often a wrestle of principalities and powers. Ephesians 6 verse 12, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of the world's darkness, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, take up the armour of God, so that when that evil day comes, you will be able to stand your ground, and having done everything, to stand. That first Easter weekend, The wrestle that was going on was not about people. It was not against natural authorities. They'd had their day and thought they'd won. But the true wrestle was the spiritual wrestle. The wrestle for life to overcome death. The wrestle for love to triumph over judgment. I wonder what you're facing today. I wonder what the situations are that you have been waiting for. Be encouraged. Stand firm. And when you've done all, stand on that ground of your promise. Do not give up. And as we remember the power of the cross, as we remember that finally that waiting was over, and that Easter Saturday and the darkness of that night gave way to the dawn of Resurrection Sunday, may we find courage again today to believe for more. May we find courage in our own waiting, nationally, internationally, personally. May we find the courage to wait for as long as it takes, but wait with expectation. Wait believing in a God who's never late, but always on time. Wait trusting in his goodness and his kindness and his power to overcome every last enemy. You know, in the waiting, there's often a silence. And Rachel reminded us that that silence can be really uncomfortable. Maybe for you, the silence has always meant disapproval. Maybe silence in the past has been that awkward moment before the eruption of anger and rage. But whatever it's been for you in the past, let this be a new day. Let this 11th day tip you into the goodness of God and redeem that silent waiting place and make it a pregnant place of expectation. Let silence be the stillness that trusts and that says, "Be still and know that I am God. For I will be exalted among the nations, and I will be exalted in the earth." You know, this year and this new decade has been prophesied as a decade of great harvest. And so as we mark this Easter weekend again, as we remember Jesus being lifted up on that cross, let's believe for the harvest, that as he is lifted up again, that as we declare afresh, he is risen and he has conquered death, that many would come to know him in this season, and that waiting for the promise to be fulfilled will finally break through and give way to the good news that we expect. May God really bless you today. Bless you in your waiting. Bless you in those silent times where you're not quite sure what's going to happen, and give you the faith to expect the God of miracles to break through. May God really bless you and have a fantastic Easter.